This is President Jason Wright, and you're listening to Rambling About Washington.
Today, I'd like to welcome on to the Rambling About Washington podcast, senior correspondent, reporter, journalist extraordinaire for the NFL Network, and key national contributor for the Atlanta Falcons, Mr. Steve Wyche. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me on, Rio. Hope all is well with you.
Absolutely. Hope the same for yourself. We're 3 weeks into the NFL season. How do you feel about everything right now?
It's weird, because there's still 14 games left to play.
I know. Weird.
Of course, some teams look like gangbusters. Some teams look like they're in shambles. Some of that will hold. Some of it won't. But some of these teams, like the Colts or whatever, who haven't gotten off to the great start. Washington, we'll see what their identity is. I've talked to a bunch of coaches and coordinators, and they say about week 4 is when we're going to start to see the identity of a lot of these teams because so many starters didn't play in the preseason. So some of the communication breakdowns we've seen, those should stabilize. On defense, open field tackling should get better now since these guys have had a couple games for it to get going. So this is where we're going to start to see the identity, the footprint of a lot of these teams, whether they started good, bad, or kind of middle of the pack.
Yeah, I see conditioning as a big thing I've been paying attention to. Guys' rotations aren't as we see them normally around mid-season form. That and officiating, I don't really think they're in mid-season form yet either because there's a lot of murky calls going on right now.
Yeah, in terms of physical conditioning of these players, these guys are in shape. I mean, these guys, I'm not worried about that part of it. But the officiating,
it's bad.
It has been all over the place. 2 weeks ago it was taunting. Last week it was like, what's taunting? Hey, we're not going to call it. So pass interference is all over the place. Defensive holdings all over the place. It's been a little bit random, but hopefully that stabilizes.
Don't get yourself fined for talking about the refs, by the way, man. But who's the most surprising team for you right now? For me, I'd say Las Vegas. Who would you say is the most surprising team?
I'd probably say the Raiders. I mean, I knew offensively that they were going to be good, but what Gus Bradley has been able to do, they look so much better on defense. On the flip, it's really kind of hard to say. Again, I thought the Colts would be better, but they've had the quarterback injury situation, and they've got this brutal schedule.
Oh man.
So we'll see if they stabilize. I'm a little concerned about like the Seahawks defensively, what's going on. Just them kind of being all over the place. But otherwise, I mean, things are kind of holding pretty much to form. Again, I'm not forming too many opinions after 3 games. Absolutely. This week 4 is kind of where I figure we're going to get going.
Yeah, and another thing that I see that stood out to me is no rookie quarterbacks really taking over or has a smoking hot start right now. I feel like the rookies all look like rookies right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're on bad teams. That's why these guys were high picks. The bad teams have the high picks. So it's not like Zach Wilson went into a great situation. I mean, Mac Jones went into a pretty decent situation, and they're okay. I mean, they're not perfect. He hasn't been perfect, but it's not like the Patriots are horrible. They're gonna work their way through things. It might not be necessarily a playoff type of year, but it could be. That's not going to happen with the Jets. We saw Justin Fields with Chicago get taken apart by a very, very good Browns defense. A lot of that's on the head coach for not having him ready or the other players ready to fit his style of offense. Some of it's on him. He's a rookie. Mm-hmm. And so he faced probably the most talented defense in the NFL.
Yep.
And then Trevor Lawrence, you just don't know what's going on in Jacksonville, but they were the worst team in the NFL last year for a reason. So they've got a long way to go. So it's going to take these guys a while to get going.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know you see the Washington defense. We're only 3 weeks into the season, but it looks really bad right now. Like based on your observations of what you've seen so far, what do you see the issues are?
Communication, man. Communication. You see it on a couple teams. where things on the back end do not marry things on the front end. And when I say that is a certain pressure, the guys in the back end have a certain coverage calls, and maybe it doesn't match up with the pressure. And so somebody's exposed. And that's why you're saying Washington, their pass defense has been all over the place. I mean, look, you're playing Buffalo. They can do that to you, right?
Yep.
But it just hasn't been consistent. The guys up front haven't been consistent. This is the week for them to get well, because Atlanta's got Atlanta's tackles are pretty good. Mm-hmm. But, interior guard to guard, that's where they're vulnerable. That's where we've seen Washington's, interior defense get to the quarterback and make some plays. And if they can flush Matt Ryan, they could force some turnovers, and they can force, some errant throws. And so this is going to be a really good tell for the Washington defense, at least as it pertains to up front. And I think if those guys get pressure, the guys in the back are going to look a lot better.
Oh, yeah, because we definitely need it, because
the
stats will tell you that we're like second in the league in pressure, but we're not getting home at all. And I'm seeing Montez Sweat and Chase Young lose in one-on-one protection a lot, because they're not going in with a real pass rush plan. They're kind of just trying to out-athlete every tackle in front of them, which could work on the college level in high school, but it's not going to work in the NFL. It's not going to fool these NFL tackles.
Well, I mean, look, it worked last year. Now, I mean, look, there's technique things. Mm-hmm. Teams adjust their pressures and protections, even if it's one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I mean, and again, it's not like they're playing a bunch of bum teams.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what they're doing on the edge could be to set up guys inside. So, I mean, there's some things that way. Again, you don't judge things by sack numbers. Judge things by pressures, disruptions, and things like that. Because of pressure to get a guy, because Matt Ryan, you get him off his spot. You may not sack him, but since he's not that real mobile guy, you get him off his spot. He can have an errant throw. It could get tipped. Mm-hmm. It could end up getting, interception. So those are the things you really need to look at. And again, I think they'll settle in a little bit this week, if they really take advantage of some of the issues along Atlanta's front.
Okay. You went to Howard University, right?
I did.
Okay. And when you were at Howard University, that was in some of the glory years of Washington. Tell me what that was like, what the mood was like when you were there.
Oh, when I was at Howard, that's when D.C. it was in a really weird place. It was the murder capital of the United States. I transferred in 86. I went to Missouri University for the first 2 years where I played football. Transferred to Howard, stopped playing. But it was a summer after Len Bias had died. So there was this really kind of creepy fear. Crack was really being introduced into mainstream America. So like a lot of the gangs and stuff up in New York had come down to D.C. So D.C. was hot. So, but it was also like a really huge time and entertainment, the New Jack Swing, all those, Teddy Riley, Albie Shore, Heavy D, all those guys were coming on the campus, hanging out. So it was really kind of cool. But, with me being in the School of Communications at this time, we had this great cluster of students who ended up doing well. Frederica Whitfield, who's on CNN Weekend, Stan Verrett, who hosts SportsCenter. Him and I graduated together. Wow, Gus Johnson. Yeah, Gus Johnson, who's on Fox. He was like a year or two behind Stan and I. Oh, and there's a lot of great writers and stuff. So we had this really competitive, like friendly group of people together. So it was fantastic for me, coming from the suburbs outside of St. Louis, coming to DC where you had this constant element of violent crime. So you're learning to kind of navigate that as to where this really kind of joyous, harmonious feeling of student body on a college campus, in a campus of students, that looked like me, which I had never experienced in my life. And so it was really just, a really interesting time, which I said made me a man because of all the things I had to navigate to kind of get through, and then to really be prepared the way I was to enter the workforce. I started out working in Richmond, Virginia, when I graduated. Worked at the Washington Post, when I was in college as a part-timer, eventually came back a couple years later to cover the NBA. But it was just it was some of the best times in my life. I love Howard. I love what Howard is about. I love the type of people Howard produces. And it just means everything to me. So you got my HBCU Legacy Bowl on.
I like it. I dig
Black
it.
Black College Football Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
Which I'm a part of in terms of the group, honoring some of the greats from HBCU. So it means everything to me.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And this offseason, another place that you're connected to, Atlanta, because you did
Yep,
some time working for, I believe, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
I did. I worked for them for when I left the Washington Post. I was down there for 5 years. And then when I first started at the NFL Network, I was based in Atlanta for 4 additional years before moving out to Los Angeles. But this offseason, I helped call some of the preseason games, did a bunch of stuff there. I still write columns for their website and do some appearances from here and there. So yeah, I'm connected to that club.
Okay, so how did that? So was it the connection through you used to work there? Is that what brought it up, or did the team just reach out to you? We like to do some content for you.
I've got some relationships there
Okay.
with some people high up in the building, and work on a couple projects kind of outside of football, but dealing with HBCUs. And the Falcons are one of the sponsors for as the title sponsor for the Black College Football Hall of
Mm-hmm.
Fame. The museum itself, of course, is located at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But and talking with some of the people I deal with there with that, and again another project we're hoping to announce in a couple months. It just kind of came up because ESPN's Mina Kimes,
Love her.
she calls
Mm-hmm.
preseason games with a group like this year with Andrew Siciliano from
Mm-hmm.
NFL Network and Aqib Talib. And just having her, she's really dynamic. She sees the game and sports in a really, impeccable way.
Interesting way. Yeah.
Right. And so having kind of that really plugged in journalistic viewpoint really enhanced a preseason broadcast where you're watching guys who really aren't going to play much in the regular season, but it really kind of gave you a nice outlook on where all of this is headed once the regular season started. I was like, I can do that. And so just in my conversations with the people with the Falcons, that's how this kind of came about. Like, have you ever thought about, tinkering with your booth or adding somebody who does what I do to kind of really get an interesting perspective? Because you can have the former player analyst. It was DJ Shockley one game, Coy Wire another. I covered both those guys and they were with the Falcons. But, they're explaining what's happening on the field, why they're running on cover two high safety, this type of stuff. Whereas I'm saying, okay, look, here's the players that they're looking at. Here's what they're trying to do. Here's the pace they're trying to develop these guys. And it really added, a nice flavor to the broadcast to kind of educate the viewer in a bigger picture. And plus, because I cover all 32 teams, I have a basis of comparison. Like, okay, here's what Arthur Smith did at Tennessee. Here's why he's not going to do the exact same thing as the head coach of the Falcons. Here's why, and here's some of the other, here's some of the other elements that play into that. So it was a really good mix, a really good chemistry. And I got to tell you, there's nothing like calling games. Out of everything I've done, there's nothing like
That's a thrill.
being in that moment. It's really, really great.
Oh, that's cool. And because I recently had Mike Silver on the show. He said he's your boy, by the way.
It's my dude.
Can
That's
you
my
confirm
dude.
that?
That's my dude.
Yeah, man. Awesome guy, man. He told me because he's now in a very similar content type role with the Washington football team. He told me he reached out to you and talked to you about what you're doing in Atlanta. So that's really cool what y'all got going right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, and Mike's my guy. They didn't renew him at NFL Network, which I'm not in agreement with. But the business is business because Mike he adds so much. He's so connected. I've known him since 1994. He's my guy. So I'm going to feel a certain way about him and what happened. But he offers so much. And yeah, he asked me about how did this work, and like Mike wasn't part of the broadcast, but he really came up with a bunch of multi-platform things in Washington because they're trying to change the way that they deliver the message to the fan base there. We know one of the most rabid fan bases in the NFL. And Mike, he brings it, man. He doesn't care. He's unfiltered. And, I would absolutely encourage anybody to read anything he ever does because he's done some of the greatest pieces in sports journalism history.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. And his connection with Ron, it shines. You could tell they're boys, both Cal Bears.
That Cal connection.
Yeah, man. I told Mike, I said, you and Ron, y'all got to pull Rodgers here next offseason, man.
Don't count on that one, bro. Don't hedge your bets on that one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. But let's talk about this game Sunday. 1-2 teams coming in.
Yep.
One team with expectations this year. Another team. The Falcons are a weird team because I feel like they didn't really have low or high expectations coming into the season. With the hiring of Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot as GM and head coach, what was the feeling going into the season, and what is it now after 3 games?
It's a really odd. Whereas you're seeing teams, like the Jaguars and the Jets and, the Bears to some degree, try to build around a young quarterback, right? They know they're going to take their lumps while the quarterback takes their lumps. Meanwhile, the Falcons were in a situation where they could have done it, but they decided to keep Matt Ryan and draft Kyle Pitts, the tight end. It's a really odd roster in terms of youth, mid-contract, guys in their athletic prime, and then dudes who are on one-year deals who aren't going to be there next year. And as the preseason went along, it became abundantly clear what they are trying to do is to form an identity and to build a roster to be kind of ready to insulate the next young quarterback when that time comes. Now, they're going to try to stay competitive and do everything with Matt Ryan in the meantime, but you saw them do some things defensively because they had to get some players, but those players really aren't on the field. They've got some rookie offensive linemen they're trying to develop, and they're taking their lumps right now.
Yep.
But that running back group with Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson, that's not a long-term solution. They've got Calvin Ridley, who's a really good wide receiver, and Russell Gage, who's good. He's a little nicked up. Don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. But it's just like, are these guys going to be 3-13? Are they going to be, 5-12? Are they going to be 7-10? And it's just weird. You don't want to be too far to the middle because if you got to get a quarterback, you got to give a lot of stuff up to move up food chain to get it. But at the same time, you're a first-year head coach and a first-year general manager and Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith. You don't want to lose too many games because you get those L's on the resume, and that's not really, you're not going to get people to believe in what you're trying to do, and it can become really catastrophic. Yeah, it become really catastrophic. And unfortunately, they've got a very patient owner, Arthur Blank. So he knows what's going on. He's going to let them see this through, but at some point it's going to have to turn. But I think this is going to take a little bit slower than what people are hoping, just because the way the roster is constructed, it needs a lot of work. They've got to get through a bloated salary cap this season and then kind of figure out what they're going to do from here.
You don't think they should have went quarterback in the first round this year?
I do as well. I mean, Justin Fields was there. I don't know if they wanted to bring him back home. I know they really like Trey Lance, but at the same time, they knew that, they're one of the teams that really thought that the Niners, that was their guy. Like, they really thought, like, you're not moving up to number 3 to get Mac Jones. As much as everybody in the media was like, Mac Jones.
Everybody.
And I was like, this doesn't smell right. There's nobody else behind them talking about they would have taken Mac Jones at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, why would we? He's not a top 10 guy. So, the fact that their cap was, they're taking a big hit from the Julio Jones, even trading him, and they traded him post June 1. So they're taking a big hit this year on his deal. They restructured Matt Ryan's deal to where they're taking a massive hit this year and next year. So that really kind of put them in, what are we going to do? Now, you're going to pay Kyle Pitts the same as you're going to pay the quarterback. But is that quarterback going to be able to develop behind a Matt Ryan? I think so. Because, who are the veterans guiding Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson? That's vital. They don't exist. I mean, that's a vital element to a young quarterback's development. Yeah. And I think Matt Ryan could have been that for a Justin Fields. But they love Kyle Pitts. He's somebody they haven't quite figured out how to get him the ball and things. He's going to be a great player. Again,
I bet they figure out a way to get him the ball this weekend, because our linebackers do not cover tight ends.
That's not good. That is not good.
It's Kyle Pitts breakout week, I promise you.
and the thing is, like, the Falcons linebackers, they can cover the running backs who Washington likes to throw to. Oluokun and Deion Jones can run, and they can cover. So that's where, you might have a little flip when it comes to linebackers and coverage schemes.
Oh, yeah. So it's get right week. Atlanta's offense is struggling, 16 points a game. Our defense is struggling. Who has the advantage in the get right battle? Because they both look really, really bad right now.
I think Washington's defense, because Falcons can't run the ball. Okay, and their offense is really based success-wise on run action, running the ball. And if you can't keep a defense honest by the inability to run, then how does that affect your run action? It allows you to double Ridley,
Mm-hmm.
to roll certain coverages to Pitts. And if Russell Gage isn't in there, who else is going to beat you? Now, I think the Falcons do need to get Hayden Hurst more involved in the run game, but because their offensive line is wobbly, they got to keep him in for protection a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is an opportunity for Washington's defense, again, the communication aspect of it, to figure things out a little bit. I mean, the Falcon, you can give them all that pre-snap eye candy and motions and things like that. But if they stay disciplined, they've got an opportunity because Atlanta is quick passing game. I mean, Matt Ryan, I think, is averaging less than 7 yards of completion.
It's bad right now.
Calvin Ridley's averaging less than 9 yards of completion. He should be 17, 18 yards of completion, even if it's catch and run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not a good way to try to move the ball. I mean, Cordero Patterson right now has been their most dangerous offensive weapon as a running back wide receiver.
That's not good.
And yeah, I mean, that's not how you're going to win a ton of games.
Not even. And so what quarterback receiver connection would you give the advantage this weekend? Heineke to McLaurin or Ryan to Ridley?
Heineke to McLaurin.
Yes.
Look, AJ Terrell, the Falcons' really good corner. He's back. He practiced today. He had a concussion, didn't play last week. He's a really good player. But otherwise, everything else in that secondary is like survive, and get to the next week. And so I think if Heineke can extend some plays, he'll have some opportunities to really have some explosive plays against this secondary. Now, Washington's got to be able to run the ball too.
Oh, we have to.
And yeah, I mean, the Falcons linebackers, the way they play, I talked about how good they are in coverage, but they are aggressive coming downhill. They're going to blitz the A gaps and really kind of hold firm to control the A and B gaps when they don't blitz. But it's, and then Grady Jarrett and Marlon Davidson are good on the inside. So, Washington's got to be able to find ways to run to set their offense up. Otherwise, their run action doesn't work. But I do think because of Heineke's mobility, he'll be able to get some throws over the top. So this is a week where we're going to find out a lot about Washington and what their ability is to kind of take advantage of a team that's got some very vulnerable holes.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely time for fool's gold to be revealed. That fourth week, it ends the first quarter of the season. You've got your feet wet a little bit, and this is when we start to see the contenders and the pretenders start to separate themselves. And if we lose this game 1-3, the way Dallas looks right now, they may run away with the division. And you don't want to say that in September.
Come on, man. It's 4 games, man.
I know, man. I know.
NFC East. Tell me the last time when some team has run away.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
So
happen.
no. There's always a few market corrections during the season in that division. So even if Washington loses this weekend, I don't think it's panic button time.
That schedule gets a little ridiculous after we play the Saints, man. We got Mahomes, Brady, we got Russell Wilson in there. We don't see the division again until December. Our season ends on 5 division games. Has that ever been done before, to your knowledge?
Yeah, it has. And again, you see it a lot. You see it a lot in the NFC East. They love doing this to teams in the NFC East. Mm-hmm. So usually they'll drop in what used to be, your week 15 game or your week 14 game, and a non-division game. But, this is where TV and everything and scheduling comes into play. And they know the major market size and the television audience of the NFC East too. So, the NFL schedule makers get it.
Okay, so I got a couple more for you, and I know you got to run. What were you going to say?
No, I said, but those schedule makers have given us some awesome games to kick the season off. I will tell you that. There's been some incredible games. And again, teams like the Raiders showing up like they have, that's only made it far more interesting. The Chargers showing up the way they have made it far more interesting.
These Sunday night games have been phenomenal. They have been phenomenal, and I love what they're doing right now. So give me your prediction for Sunday's game if you're allowed to do so. How you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big score guy, but I think Washington wins. I think it's going to be, just a stuck in the mud type game where turnovers will come into play. But I think Washington kind of, levels up this week.
Yeah, it's going to be something ugly, like 23-21. and it's not going to be like organic.
That's not ugly. 13-10 or 16-13 is ugly.
Oh, we will find a way to muck up a 21-23 score. I promise you. We get ugly sometimes. It's hard to watch us sometimes, but I stay loyal. Okay, last question, and then you could go. In 2022, when Week 1 gets here, the Washington Blanks will be starting who at quarterback? What's the name of the team going to be, and who's going to be the starting quarterback?
What are some of the names? Is it like the Commanders or something like that?
Some type of wolf, Commanders. I don't know too many other realistic. The Washington football team. What do you think?
I'm all for it. I think we've all gotten used to it now.
Yeah, I think everyone in the media is cool with it because they've said it for a year, and they're all like, you know what? Let's just keep it going. Like it makes sense at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the Commanders or I wouldn't go Commanders. I watch Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, the Commanders. You don't want to go there. That kind of elicits some bad.
Think of Waterford.
Exactly, some bad thoughts. But I don't know. And then the starting quarterback. Gosh, it won't be Deshaun Watson.
Oh, hell no.
It won't be him. But it'll be interesting to see, what Miami, if Tua becomes available, and if Tua's a quarterback, or they think that can do some things. They want a young guy who's still have 2 years left on a rookie contract. He might be something to look at because of his injury history and just, I know they're going to be a play to get Deshaun Watson next year. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Carolina extends Sam Darnold.
Okay, that's an interesting name. I hope Gruden finally moves on because I love what I see from him right now. That'd be great to punch in there, but I think
I don't think Derek wants to be anywhere near Jack Del Rio.
Right.
So if that happens, they may have to make a coaching change. But no, Derek's not going anywhere. It'll be interesting because I think there's going to be some more quarterback movement next year. Hell, who could be Matt Ryan? You never know.
I'll take Matt Ryan for a year or two, but oh man, if it's not gonna be someone like a Rodgers, Wilson, Carr type player in a trade,
no, it's not.
It's not the draft. Then you got to go draft. Then you got.
They better not win games,
or just be ready to. You got to be ready to just push the cards in the middle of the table. But I'm gonna hold out the smallest sliver of hope that Silver and Ron pull the cow card and make the call when the season
ain't happening. Not happening, brother.
Oh,
not happening.
You're probably correct. But thank you for coming on with me today, Steve. You can plug anything you got going on, your podcast, what you're doing right now, your social medias, and if we can get out.
Yeah, man. Look, you can find me at Wyche89, WYCHE 89 on Twitter and IG. Catch me on NFL Now 3 times a week on NFL Network, and typically every Sunday or every other Sunday or so on Game Day Morning and other NFL Network programming.
Absolutely. And you heard the man. Rodgers will not be coming to D.C.
No.
But that's going to do for today's episode of Rambling About Washington. Until next time, hail to the nameless football team. Deuces.